Sit back, it's time to get groovy. Question, do you remember that movie?
Welcome back to Remember That Movie. I am the third Alejandro Rosa on IMDb.
And I'm Steve Johnston, and I am not on IMDb.
For this episode, we're going to 1982 for the fantasy film The Beastmaster. As I have said in way too many episodes, I grew up watching HBO, a lot of HBO, and The Beastmaster played a pivotal role because it was on all the time. And at the same time, because it was a childhood film that I have not watched since I was a little kid, I remembered very little of it, only snippets, only little bits and pieces. Some of it came back to me as I was watching, and then there were bits that I had no idea were even there. Steve, what is your history with The Beastmaster?
I know of the Beastmaster because it was referenced in a joke in Mystery Science Theater 3000 once.
Do we remember the joke?
No.
That's why we have millions of subscribers, because of the excellent content that we provide.
So, no, I was just aware that this movie existed. Nothing more.
This is very loosely based on a 1959 science fiction novel by Andre Norton, which was actually a pen name for Alice Mary Norton.
Based on a science fiction novel?
That's correct. For example, the main character is a Navajo that immigrates from Earth to the distant planet Arzor. That's all I wrote, because I think that tells you how loosely based this movie is on this book.
Yes.
And she was so unhappy with this film, she asked that her name be removed from the credits.
Excellent.
I will point out, if you listen to our last episode, which was Logan's Run, another movie that has been made from a book that just took its own journey. And I think this one goes even further than Logan's Run. Logan's Run at least had the kind of concept of the book.
Right.
This one is like, nah, we're going to throw all of it out. Except for like a couple of tiny little bits. Mostly
Talking
the
to
animal stuff.
animals,
Yeah, that was pretty
right.
much it. That was it.
Yeah.
So what is this film about? This film is... Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a summary, because I don't know how to get into this film without getting past the plot. This is what I came up with, Steve. Witches tell the high priest Mayax that King Zed's unborn son will kill him. So they take the baby out of the mother, unborn baby, let me point that out, and put it into a cow, naturally. Then the witch takes the cow out into a field, kills the cow, rips it open, takes out the baby with the goal of killing the baby, but then a villager comes by, kills the witch, and raises the boy as his own. And then the boy can grow up to be able to talk to animals, communicate with animals. And then he meets a girl, kills the priest, fights a mob of baddies, thanks to the help of some nightmare creatures that we will talk about later. And then he leaves. There are also ferrets, tigers, and an eagle. The end.
Nicely done.
If that sounds ridiculous to you folks...
It is. Oh, sorry.
No, you're absolutely correct. It is. No apologies necessary. This is ridiculous. Oh my goodness. What a film. This film is directed by Don Coscarelli. Steve, do you have any knowledge of Don Coscarelli?
The name doesn't ring a bell, but I look forward to being proven wrong.
He's very famous for his film Phantasm. He was a
Oh.
horror film guy.
Okay.
The Phantasm and its sequels he was very famous for. Later on in his career, he wrote the comedy horror film Bubba Hotep.
Really?
Yep. Or he directed it.
Oh.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, which got nominated for a lot of film awards in 2002. That is all I know about Don Coscarelli. And he co-wrote this with Paul Pepperman, a name that doesn't sound real, but is. This film comes out August 20th,
Okay.
so it's 1982. It comes out about 3 months after another very famous film with a barely clad man. Do you know what that film is?
Tell me that's Conan the Barbarian.
It is absolutely Conan the Barbarian.
Wow, they were that close together?
One of them came out in August, one of them came out in May.
Wow. Okay.
It stars Mark Singer as Dar.
We could only afford one syllable.
We have Kiri, played by Tanya Roberts. And we have Rip Torn. Rip Torn makes a return to the podcast as Mayax, the High Priest. The names are all over the place. We have Seth, played by John Amos. Rod Loomis plays King Zed. And we also have a couple of supporting characters. We have Sharak, Kodo, Podo, and Rue. This is an eagle, 2 ferrets, and a tiger. I will point out that I said tiger, not leopard.
I was going to ask if the cat was a tiger painted black, because you could tell it's a tiger painted black.
Yes, it is a tiger that has been, or several tigers that were painted black. Because Dar can communicate with animals, he ends up having these friends, the ferret, the eagle, and the tiger. They're a big part of the cast. Mark Singer is a theater and film actor. He voiced Man-Bat in the Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, cool.
Tanya Roberts appeared in the 5th season of Charlie's Angels. She played Midge in that 70s show, and I bet you know this already. In 1985, she was in A View to Kill, the James Bond film with Roger Moore.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, she was.
See, I knew it, because you're a Bond guy.
It took me a moment, though. Wow.
Rip Torn, there are so many things about Rip Torn to say. He's probably the most famous person in this cast, other than John Amos. Famously played Kunta Kinte in the miniseries Roots, played James Evans Jr. on Good Times, Admiral Perry Fitzwallace on The West Wing. He was in Coming to America, and on and on and on and on. They spent $9 million on this film, and they made all kinds of stuff. They made The Village. They made The Pyramid, which cost something like $35,000 to make. Steve, do you think that if you're going to make a movie with several animals, that you're going to pay top dollar for those animals?
One would hope, but with a budget of $9 million and $35,000 of that going towards the pyramid,
The answer is no. According to the research, they went with bargain basement animal actors. For example, a lot of these animals were not trained and would not do what they were asked. They had one bird who would not fly, Steve. They literally put it up in a basket in a balloon, took it up 300 feet, and then remotely opened the basket to get it to fly so they could film it. The director wanted a leopard, a black leopard, because that's what it calls for in the script. But leopards are not as easy to train as tigers.
right.
And they had more access to tigers. So they said, you know what? Don't worry about it. We'll just paint the tigers with this dye that doesn't stay on. So apparently, if you pay close attention, the leopard is at different shades of black during different portions of the film. And yes, you can definitely tell. In fact,
Absolutely.
they did pictures at the beginning with the opening credits, and they did a picture of this leopard, and I'm like, oh my God, that's a tiger. Steve, this film starts out.
It starts out with The Leisure Investment Company. And as soon as I saw that, I knew I was in for one heck of a ride.
The Leisure Investment Company is one of the producers in this. When I was doing like backstory on this film, it sounds like the producers had a lot to say on the choices made for this film. As I mentioned before, Kiri was played by Tanya Roberts. That was not who the director wanted. The director wanted a very young actress who was doing great named Demi Moore. And Demi Moore read for this part multiple times. And it's exactly who the director wanted, but the producer wanted Tanya Roberts. But anyway, this film opens up in the weirdest way possible. 3 women around a cauldron wearing what I can only describe as old lady masks, but the rest of them is barely clad.
And they are grinding on this cauldron.
Folks, it is not an exaggeration to say that they are weirdly grinding the cauldron, which is the worst Harry Potter title. So then they're like, okay, we need to get Zed's baby, who hasn't been born yet, because if not, this child is going to grow up to kill you. And they transfer it into a cow, and that scene alone
Raises so many questions.
And let me point something out. This film barely has any blood in it, and there's a reason for that. Are you ready for the magical reason? They wanted it to be available for children.
Fair enough. Okay.
which will be surprising when you hear about some of the things that are in this movie. For starters, the scene in which a pregnant woman has her baby taken out of her through magic, and then you see it essentially go into a cow. So the woman has a pregnant belly, it flattens, and then the cow's belly enlarges. Terrifying.
The cow, I will point out, having been snuck into the tent where the king and his wife are sleeping.
That was the best scene ever, by the way, because it was like, here is the royal couple asleep. Oh, there's a witch, and she brought her cow with her, and she puts a magical potion on them so that they can't get up.
Breaks a glow stick over their necks, if I recall.
It's literally glow stick liquid that they
It is.
used. Yes. And then she does the baby thing, and then the mother dies, and then she runs off with the child. Why, Steve, she just didn't kill the mother with the child is beyond me. Seems like a much simpler way to do this task.
There are so many times during this film that they could have killed Dar in a much more expedient and simple manner, but chose not to.
So, opens the cow up. Thankfully, we don't really see that. And then she has a baby. Then she brands the baby, and then she's about to kill the baby, and it just so happens that a villager's just walking by, and he goes, hey, that's not cool. He ends up killing the witch and raising Dar. And I immediately thought, this is for children. I was watching this as a tiny, tiny child. Then we have Dar growing up, and then we have the bear scene. Dar and his dad are training, and suddenly there's a bear. This is the moment where we realize that Dar can communicate with animals. The bear is going to attack them, but Dar just stares at the bear, and then the bear backs off. When they filmed this scene, the very first time they filmed it, please remember, bargain basement animals. They were about to film the scene, and the bear attacked his handler, and the cast ran for their fucking lives.
I should not laugh. I should not laugh, because a bear attack is no joking matter.
and I believe the handler was... No, wait. Nope, the handler got medical attention. But then they filmed the scene when they calmed the bear down. So they didn't get a different bear, Steve. They took the violent bear and filmed the scene with the child. So that's when we realized that Dar can communicate with animals. Fast forward, Dar is now a young, strapping man. He goes out into the field to work with all the other young, strapping men. And in the meantime, the Juns, a horde that I guess lives nearby, comes and attacks this village where all the houses are on stilts for no reason that I can possibly understand. Dar's dad, who we've learned is quite a good sword fighter, stands up, sees the Juns coming, pulls out his sword, puts himself in perfect presentation to fight. Think Jon Snow with the great battle, with the one difference is that the horde comes and then seems to run him over with their horses. Like, he doesn't even get one good lick in.
No.
Dar and the other young men come running back, only to slowly die. Dar gets knocked out, and his white dog comes and tries to rescue him, gets an arrow through the side, and gets him out of safety, because I guess everyone was really distracted and didn't notice the white dog dragging the human away into the woods. Dar wakes up in the woods. Dog is dead. Dar is alive, and then he goes back. The village is done. He realizes he wants to avenge his father, of course. He also sets everybody on fire. But he does it in a beautiful way, because he puts them in the symbol of the village.
Yeah, very ritual. I liked that.
Then Dar decides to run around for the rest of the film, getting rid of some of his clothing, strapping on kind of a leather loincloth thing. He's got his sword.
His sword, his pouch, and his, as you say, kind of a leather skirt piece.
And away he goes. And then we see him, I guess, training a lot. First with a log, and then with his sword. I guess he's preparing for what comes next. And in the process, he discovers that he can communicate with this bird. He can see what the bird sees. He discovered 2 ferrets, who then become his little friends, and he carries them in his pouch. And then at some point finds that this leopard has been caught and helps save him. And Dar fights these people except for the one. And instead of fighting the one, he lets the leopard loose. And then the leopard goes and attacks the man and clearly kills him. while Dar stands there with his arms crossed, smiling. So now we've discovered all our friends, well, all our animal friends. We have the introduction of Kiri. She is going for a swim with a friend who we never speak to and never see again. I did learn that this is California, but it was winter. So apparently, just like in Greece too, freezing water. Also, she's barely wearing anything. And by that, I mean small bottoms, no tops.
His introduction to Kiri is, let's just say, not his shining moment. Seeing that she is scantily clad, he decides that he fancies her, and so sends his ferrets to abscond with her clothes.
That's so ridiculous, but it's so true.
Leading her to chase the ferrets into the woods in just her underwear, basically. She's put a top back on at this point, thankfully, into the path of the tiger. And I apologize, I'm calling it a tiger because it's a tiger.
It is a tiger.
She is startled by the tiger, fears for her life, and that is when Dar... I cannot say his name without laughing, I'm sorry.
Well, and you should hear how he says it. I am Dar.
Dar.
He jumps out of nowhere and he grabs her. And he's just like, hey, you can't show him fear. And the tiger is just hanging out. He pretends to control the tiger and then says, you can thank me, and tries to kiss her.
I do not like the circumstances overall, but I did find it amusing that he kind of nods to the tiger going, okay, you can leave now. And the tiger just stares at him. And so he does a big head motion like, no, off, go, go, go.
Yes, they added just a hint of comedy to it, which I enjoyed. I also liked the fact that when he tried to get frisky with Kiri, she threw him to the ground really easily, which we, of course, later learned that Kiri has a background as a warrior. It makes more sense. The ferrets, let's steal this woman's top. Okay.
They were told to.
We're not going to blame the ferrets. The ferrets are fine.
The ferrets are the highlight of the movie. They are just so gosh darn cute.
They're insanely cute. We have this kind of weird journey. Now, you have to understand, Dar has no idea where he came from. He has no idea he's the king's son. The king, we learn, has been imprisoned by Mayax. We later find out that one of the king's guards is off trying to create a rebellion to try to get the king back. But Dar has no concept of this. He's just kind of running around figuring out how he's going to avenge his father's death with the Juns.
He was told, if I remember correctly, that his destiny lay in the valley.
Yes, that's true.
So I assume that he is making his way towards that valley.
So much of this movie is Dar running around by himself with a tiger and some ferrets and a bird. That is like 70% of the movie. Also looking more and more tan and oiled in many scenes.
The movie takes us all over the place.
It really does. And honestly, this is part of the criticism about this movie, by the way. It's not just that I am struggling to kind of communicate this film, is that this film goes in so many different angles and so many different paths that it's hard to follow. And guess what? It was hard for people to follow. The biggest criticism with this film is it was too long, too much stuff going on, and seemed to have multiple times that it felt like it was ending. There is a scene where he finally fights Mayax. Typically, this would be the culmination of it all. He fights Mayax. He kills Mayax. Mayax comes back right at the end. He kills him again. Actually, no, that's not true. The ferret kills him. Not important. What's important here is that you're like, wow, he saved the girl. And he killed the bad guy, and he saved the king, who is now blind. Different issue. We don't need to talk about it. And then you think, the movie is over. But the movie is not over, because we still have to deal with the Juns.
Upon killing Mayax, I knew the movie couldn't be over just yet.
Why did you think that?
Because of Chekhov's mote of goo. I have 2 notes that I wrote down amongst the myriad ones in my book here. The 2 that I want to call to your attention are Chekhov's bird medallion and Chekhov's mote of goo.
Okay.
When Dar first arrives at the city, he crosses a bridge and looks over the side, and he drops something into this moat, and we see it hit this sort of black, sandy goo, and then whatever it is he's dropped kind of slowly sinks into it.
Yes.
And I thought, this is going to play a pivotal role in some further scene. We go through, we save the princess, kill Mayax, but the moat hasn't been used yet. So I was fairly certain that nope, the movies can't be over quite just yet because we have yet to utilize the moat.
I apologize for jumping around and around and around with this film, but gosh, it's hard to keep it straight. At some point, Dar connects with Seth. Seth is, or was, the right hand to King Zed. And he's also taking care of Zed's current son, who will be the eventual heir. They, at one point, sneak into the pyramid. By the way, there's a pyramid in the middle of this town. They are trying to free the king, King Zed, which they eventually do. There is a great moment, Steve. At one point, did you notice when Kiri left?
I was hoping we could talk about this.
So they're sneaking through this pyramid.
It is just a series of hallways for all intents and purposes.
Absolutely. And there's some scary things in some places. So at some point, they're like sneaking around and Kiri disappears, pushes on a lever, and goes into another section. And comes back 2 minutes later, having changed clothes, and now has the tiniest dagger that I have ever seen.
This led me to write down one of my favorite quotes from Dar. Dar and King Zed's son are staring down this opening in the floor into a room beneath them, and they're trying to figure out what to do next. And Kiri just kind of stands up and walks away. And I was trying to figure out, number one, how did the two of them not notice that the third member of their 3-member party is no longer
Just
there?
left. Yeah.
She sneaks away, she pulls on a stone which opens up a secret door, and she disappears into the passage. And I got very excited because I was trying to figure out, is she a turncoat? Is she actually working for Mayax? And this is where the double cross is going to come in. Does she know a secret shortcut or something like that? And then I think, as you said, she comes back out having put on a belt with a very small dagger attached.
Okay.
This prompts Dar to turn to the young king and ask, why is she dressed like that? She put on a belt, dude. What?
Not, where did you go?
Had she come back in like full warrior armor or with a gigantic sword of her own or something like that, fine, I could let that line slip.
Sure.
But she accessorized.
They're looking down, and we are introduced to the concept of a death guard, which we've already seen because at one point they try to go through a hallway, and these creatures with spiky gloves try to reach through bars to grab them, and they have glowing eyes. So later we learn that at this wonderful temple of horrors, they take people and they put them in what I can only describe as bondage wear. They strap them down with spiky metal gloves, and then they stick a weird glow-in-the-dark worm in them, and then they put a gimp mask on them. You think I'm exaggerating, but later, when Death Guard is running around, you're like, those are assless chaps. He's wearing assless chaps. He is. No shirt. Tasteful undies. Anyway, they have this thing, and they turn them into this horror creature, which, by the way, then spends like 5 minutes chasing after ferrets. I felt so supportive of the actor whose job it was to walk around literally going, yeah, and that's it, because you're wearing a mask, so nobody sees you. Very muscular guy, just running around trying to attack ferrets. So many little things in this film. Can we talk about the ring of my childhood nightmares?
The ring of your childhood nightmares.
It is a ring that opens to reveal a human eye. And I remembered that as a child, that scared the living crap out of me.
I would imagine so, because the effect is very well done.
We cannot finish talking about the plot of this film without talking about what I would like to refer to as the skin bats. At some point, Dar is chasing after Kiri after the waterfall scene.
He notices a tree up on top of a mountain that has these glowing things hanging from it. So he goes to investigate, discovers these weird glowing pods, a giant cauldron. When he stirs it, a human head pops up. There's a poor man caged, and so he sets the man free and immediately discovers that he's surrounded by these very leathery, bat-like looking creatures. The man attempts to run. One of the bat things jumps in front of him and envelops him in its wings. And then we just hear screams and gurgles, and green goo starts falling down the man's legs. And then the bat finishes whatever it's doing, opens its wings, and the guy's clothing and I must think bones just kind of crumble to the floor.
Once again, children's movie.
Dar believes he is next.
And he would be right.
Except in front of the tree, there is this idol that looks kind of like a German eagle, if you can kind of picture that sort of iconography. Black wings, very angular. Dar's panicking, but then his eagle friend lands on top of this idol, and all of the bat creatures suddenly go, ooh. Actually, they don't say anything, but their posture changes.
Their posture silently changes in the way that says, maybe we won't turn him into a pile of bones and goo.
The overall effect, as the audience, you pick up that, he is in with the eagle they revere, therefore he's safe. He's not going to be touched. And so he is given sort of safe passage out away from this tree. And as he is leaving, he is given, do they give it to the bird and the bird gives it to him?
It's more terrifying than that, because he has his sword out. He doesn't trust this, and he's trying to leave. And at some point, one of the bat things jumps in front of him, and you think, oh, he's going to die, and then slides a giant medallion down his sword.
That's right.
Terrifying, by the way. Terrifying.
Yes, but this gives us Chekhov's bird medallion.
Now, why do you call it Chekhov's bird medallion?
Well, just like Chekhov's motive
Why
goo,
do you call it Chekhov's anything?
the concept of Chekhov's gun. The idea that in a play or production, any form of art, if you call attention to something and go, look at this thing, you had better damn well use it by the end of whatever the production is. In the play, it happens to be, I think, a gun mounted to the wall that ends up being used. We've got this bird medallion, which they take great pains to show that, oh, look, we're giving this to you, and this is significant because we're not killing you. And then we've got the moat out front of the city, which we took great pains to show you is filled with this weird substance, two potentially very big plot devices that, as of the time of Mayax's killing, haven't been used yet.
By the way, this movie is not 3 hours long, but it does feel like it at times.
Oh, if you're trying to describe it, yes. Because, no, he goes to the temple, finds out that she's not at the temple, so he leaves the temple to chase her, and then she's taken back to the temple, so he has to go back to the temple, kills bad guy number one.
Yes.
Oh, no, sorry, frees the king.
Yes, frees the king.
The king leads an epic battle against Mayax where he storms the city to take it back, which we do not get to see because we are following a brooding Dar, because the king does not like Dar for some reason.
He calls him a freak.
The freak who just saved you from the dungeon of the temple. My note here was, what's the king's problem?
Yeah, what's your problem, king?
Setting that aside for the moment. The king is going to lead his forces to storm the temple and kill Mayax. We find out secondhand that this epic battle failed and that everyone has been captured. That's what leads Dar and his little band to go and finally kill Mayax in the first final battle.
Wait, they are having this debate. Do we attack Mayax or do we not? Seth is there, and Dar is saying, you don't want to do that, you will lose, etc. And the king is like, what do you know? And then Seth says, and I quote, he is a friend. He is the Beastmaster. Which is, by the way, the first time, an hour and 27 minutes in, that anybody calls him the Beastmaster. And the king says, no, he's a freak who speaks to animals. Then the Beastmaster goes away. And when you cut back to the Beastmaster, he's crying. He's crying. Yes. And then, like a scene later, Kiri is crying. Everything is fake tears, by the way. There's no acting involved in these scenes. It is nothing but fake tears, and I was howling with laughter because I'm like, oh no, Dar feelings hurt bad. Dar sad. Tiger pet. I was like, what are we doing? Is this a PSA for bullying?
King's words not nice.
And then Kiri's like, I am sad too for Dar.
With Mayax gone, now the Horde, were the June in league with Mayax, or was Mayax's presence keeping them away?
It seemed that the Junes were the Junes and the Mayax were the Mayaxes. So we have two different factions of problems. Again, a little confusing. So yeah, here we are.
The Junes are coming. We get a fantastic A-team montage where they are preparing the city for the June's attack. This is where they pull back the bridge. I got excited because, they are actually going to use the moat that they foreshadowed earlier. And then, naturally, it is nighttime when the Junes arrive. The leader of the Junes, I can best describe as the Humongous from Mad Max Road Warrior. He has got a full leather mask that covers his entire face except for the eyes, and then like wings coming off of the helmet, what have you. An impressive looking figure. And then his horde are just horde on horses. They approach the moat, and then they start running forwards. The moat has been covered over with sand, so all of the horses plunge into this black goo. And then part 2 of the plan, which really should have been thought through a little better, methinks, goes into effect where someone with a flaming torch runs to ignite the moat. It takes, I think, 3 people to actually get the torch into the moat because they keep getting shot by the arrows. It's like, okay, no, fire a flaming arrow or do it from the side or do something. Don't do a full assault with a torch.
Stop running towards the moat with the torch.
They light the moat on fire, and I do have to say, the explosion of the moat was awesome.
Yes.
That looked great. And then we are treated to a very cool fight scene. And you could tell that I think the inspiration for this was, we want to have a bunch of sword fighting while everything's on fire.
Yes.
Because there's a bunch of sword fighting and everything is on fire. I think there's a bit of back and forth in the battle. Eventually, Dar, Kiri, and the young king end up encircled by the...
Not before he takes down Batboy, because he does take down Batboy, and you know how? With the most 80s move ever. He takes down Batboy with a high kick.
That's right, yes.
Then they realize, oh, the Horde's still here. They're not, like, running away like they do in some movies. They're actually surrounding Seth, Kiri, Dar. And it's like, now what?
Well, now we get the payoff from the bird medallion. Because at some point prior to this, I think Dar gives the medallion to the eagle and sends it aloft. So we kind of know, reinforcements will be coming at some point. And so as they are sitting there surrounded by the Horde, all of a sudden the weird bat creatures appear behind the Horde.
Skin bats.
I'm not going to call them that. The Horde turns around and every single one of them gets hugged by the bats.
And at some point, our main characters are like, let's go inside the castle. And the way I wrote it is pretty much like, let's go inside. This is gross. And they just calmly kind of sneak back into the castle while the skin bats are just eating everything.
And once all the Horde have been destroyed, what I presume to be the leader of the bat people approaches Dar and basically nods as if to say, our obligation is fulfilled. Let us know whenever this happens again. We'll be hungry then.
It's so gross. And once again, it's a children's film. Sort of.
Now we have the denouement, in which Seth approaches Dar and informs him that the young king who was shot by an arrow in the right shoulder will not be able to use his left hand for a while. Dar, his identity is discovered that he is the son of King Zed, and therefore the crown should be his. He says, no, I give it to the boy. He's the rightful heir at this point. I am going off into the wilderness, and he goes off into the wilderness. I think Kiri follows him. That's right, she does, because we end on them like snogging on top of a hill, don't we?
He goes off and he's like, I'm on my own, me and my tiger. And I swear to God, Kiri like just shows up behind him. And it's like, wow, did you not hear her coming? And so then they, as you say, snog on top of a mountain with the tiger next to them. You can't see it, but the tiger is chained and there's a handler nearby holding the chain.
Okay.
They decided to do it that way because, and I quote, this was from the director, the last thing we wanted was our heroes at the end of the film to be attacked by a tiger.
It's funny because as I was trying to think about this movie and figure out, what can we say, what can we discuss, I figured we would kind of hit the plot in chronological order. But then as we began talking about it, I realized if we talk about the plot in chronological order, it is going to take the entire length of the film because it is that weird and convoluted, and we jump around all over the place. This thing has serious script problems. That being said, I totally understand why 9-year-old Alejandro loved this movie. I'm fairly certain that 9-year-old Steve would have liked this movie as well, because it is very shallow. It has no deeper meaning. It's just this is an adventure story, and each scene is another chapter in the adventure. So I can understand that this is kind of engaging if you're younger and don't think about it. As a grown-up, there is part of me that finds this movie oddly good in some ways. It's like it's not bad enough to be a bad movie, but it's definitely not good enough to be a good movie either. I'm not sure where it falls. The explosion of the moat, the fight choreography amongst the flames, that was good. I can't go an episode where there's one involved without mentioning it. The model of the town was very nice, except it ran into the issue where smoke does not miniaturize properly. They really should have done that in slow-mo so that the smoke coming off the temple looked a bit more imposing rather than this little wispy thing. So there are aspects of this movie that are actually quite well done. The script and the story is all over the place. I think I'm just confused.
Yes. The fact that it took us this long to get through it, yes, there's problems here.
And we didn't get to some scenes. We didn't talk about the dramatic escape in the boat
Nope.
down the river that's flowing very slowly
Yeah.
with the enemy on horses on the river bank.
Which made me think,
And
can't they just follow the boat? Like they're just galloping along on the side.
That is exactly what I thought as well.
I didn't hate the film. I don't think it's a good film. I'm sorry. It's not a good Beastmaster is not a good film. I did like, this is going to sound like you're at a bad play and you're commenting on the font in the program. I did enjoy the music. I did. Lee Holdridge, a Haitian-born American composer, wrote 80 minutes of music for this. And the cinematographer was John Alcott, who was an Oscar-winning cinematographer, very famous for working with Stanley Kubrick on multiple projects, including, I think he was the cinematographer for The Shining. It's not a great film. It's not. It's not a children's film in any way. My child would never sleep again if she saw the Skin Bats, the Bondage Boys, a.k.a. the Death Guards, or The Ring, which still scares me to this day. So, not for children, and I don't think it's very good. You know what? You know who agreed with you a little bit?
Who?
Gene Siskel. He said, isn't as bad as it is overlong. So this film did okay in the box office. It didn't do like spectacular. It made like $14 million with a $9 million budget. That is not a huge success, but good enough.
It covered expenses.
It did better when it went into syndication.
Ah.
Between TBS, TNT, and HBO, Beastmaster was always on. So people watched. So it's become kind of I don't want to say a cult following, but yeah, there's big Beastmaster fans. There were critics who compared Conan the Barbarian to Beastmaster, saying that Beastmaster was copying. The director had this to say: no way we could have ripped off Conan the Barbarian or even seen Conan the Barbarian. Here's a name that you will like: Dino De Laurentiis.
Ooh.
Dino liked this movie so
that does not surprise
much
me in the slightest.
that he offered the director the chance to direct the sequel, Conan the Destroyer. And our director said, no. Apparently, he read the script and he thought the script was terrible. So there you go. That is the Beastmaster for all intents and purposes. There was a sequel in 1991, Beastmaster 2, Through the Portal of Time.
Oh, no.
But what about 1996's Beastmaster 3, The Eye of Braxus?
That one sounds more promising than Through the Portal of Time or whatever it was.
And then, of course, from 1999 to 2002, there was the Beastmaster, the TV series. Does this movie hold up?
No.
No.
But sort of? Not really?
It has a terrible plot. It has a couple of decent action scenes. It also has some terrible action scenes with some really bad hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
It has a lot of him standing there swinging his sword at nothing.
Yeah, we could have done without that.
There's a lot of unnecessary, well, not even a lot. There's enough nudity that was unnecessary. There was one scene too many of grinding cauldrons. I don't know. Even Rip Torn can't save this. I don't know what Rip Torn was doing.
Oh, he was doing his best.
One person, when asked much, much later what she felt about the movie, Miss Tanya Roberts said, "It's just bad." So there you go. That is the Beastmaster, folks. For some of you, this may bring up a lot of nostalgia, and that's fine. We like nostalgia. Sometimes we will watch movies not because they're great, but because they remind us of a different time.
And for others of you, it might bring up some trauma, and for that we do apologize.
We hope you enjoyed that. Steve,
Sir,
do you have a film for us for next time?
as you were kind enough to treat me to a movie that you used to watch as a kid, I took a look through my list and found one that I remember watching many times when I was younger. And so I want to take us forward a couple years to 1986, and we're going to watch Disney's Flight of the Navigator.
I will have a lot to say about this film, but I won't say it now. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe in whatever fashion you're listening to, or like, or leave a comment or a review. We enjoy those. Boy, we definitely read them, that's for sure. And for some of you, ouch. But for others, thanks. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you again next time.
Sit back, it's time to get groovy. Question, do you remember that movie?